It's me, Mordekainen. I'm back. Did you miss me? Look at me. I'm on a horse, in space, holding a basketball. And there's an astral dreadnought behind me. Which wouldn't make sense, because that lives in the astral plane, and I'm in space, not in the astral plane. It's Wednesday! It's 9 o'clock in the morning. Obviously, I'm feeling a little silly today. It's the 27th day of April 2022. It's 56 degrees and sunny here at Site B. I've been watching DS9 again on Netflix, and oh my, it doesn't stand up. It is one of the best of the Star Trek series post-Star Trek. I mean, I know most people like Next Generation. I liked all of them except Voyager and Discovery. But yeah, DS9 is not as politically correct as people might remember it. Wow. Anyways, moving on. It's Wednesday. It's time to take a look at all the RPGs product that might be on the shelves at your friendly local game store this week. That's Dream World Collectibles here if you're in Ventura. God, I almost said Seth. I miss you, Seth. So, if any of the titles I read about sound like it's interesting to you, head on down to your friendly local game store. That's Dream World Collectibles here in Ventura, California. And ask them to see if they have it. Or if they don't have it, if they can order it. Anyways, moving on. From Crucible 7, we have Redacted Records for Wrath and Glory. This is a $35 hardcover supplement for the Wrath and Glory 40K RPG. Looks like it contains a bunch of stuff on world building in that world, new systems, new monsters, new frameworks, and stuff like that. So if you're looking for fun ways to add to your Warhammer 40K Wrath and Glory campaign, Redacted Records. From our old friends over at Ultra Pro, we have the Mordekainians Presents Monsters of Multiverse playmat. Just in time for the Mordekainen Monsters of the Multiverse book to be coming out, which I think is like May? Like next week or the week after that. We have a playmat. Soft fabric top with rubber backing playmat. 24 by 13 inches for $24. $24 for a piece of foam so you could play Magic on it or eat your food and not get the table dirty or use it as a mouse pad. I use them as mouse pads. So if playmats for Magic or collectible card games are your things and you want to spend $24 on one, the Mordekainen one features a picture of our buddy Mordekainen in space on a horse holding a basketball with an astral dreadnought behind him, which of course would make no sense because space and the astral plane are two different places. But whatever. You go, Mordekainen. You go. From Smoldering Dung Games. Okay, you win this week's prize for Best Name. We have Flipping and Turning, issue number 2. This is a magazine for Dungeons & Dragons. It contains new monsters, random encounters, NPCs, and more. It's $16. $16 for a magazine. I don't know. What do magazines cost these days? I haven't bought a magazine in years. I mean, what's an average copy of People cost now? Is $16 reasonable for a magazine? Especially since all the work that the people did for this one. I don't know. What do the writers for Flaming Dung Games get paid that they can justify us $16 for a magazine on Dungeons & Dragons? I'd have to go and see what a copy of a typical magazine at a supermarket costs right now to see if that's actually reasonable or ridiculous. So right now I'm holding on, and it looks like it's black and white. So black and white for a $16 with monsters, random encounters, and stuff like that for D&D. Sounds a little pricey, but I'd have to take a look at the magazine, and then I'd have to compare it to actual magazines still in print. And when was the last time anybody looked at a magazine? Moving on. From BRW Games, we have some stuff for Adventures Dark and Deep. We have Adventure Module number 1, The Hamlet of Volthag, and Adventure number 2, Red in Tooth and Claw. This is softcover adventures for $6 each for the Adventures Dark and Deep OSR game. Adventures Dark and Deep OSR game is, of course, a loving homage to AD&D. It's very close to what people say Gary Gygax wanted AD&D to be. The people who have created Adventures Dark and Deep have done a lot of research and a lot of delving into magazines and interviews and articles and conversations with Gary and then took this and made their own OSR homage to AD&D based on what Adventure AD&D was and what Gary said he wanted and stuff like that, and what Gary worked on, and maybe Gary talked to these guys. We know that the last project Gary worked on before he sadly passed away was Castles and Crusades, and Gary was been supposedly said that he felt Castles and Crusades was closest to what he had in mind when he started this whole thing. So who knows? Anyways, if you're a fan of the OSR and an AD&D spending $6 for a module, wow, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. From Legendary Games for Pathfinder 1st Edition, we have some new class books, Legendary Oracles, Legendary Classes, and Legendary Inquisitors. So these are $16 supplements giving you information on very specific classes in the Pathfinder 1 universe. Well, I guess it's nice to see Pathfinder 1 getting some support. I was a huge fan of Pathfinder 1st Edition when it first came out and for the first couple of years before it got ridiculous. I know nothing about Pathfinder version 2. I've heard good things and I've heard bad things. I haven't had a chance to play it or run it, so I can't say anything about it. If you have any experience with Pathfinder 2, let me know. $16 for a book that's not being supported by the creators anymore, which just gives you information on a class or ways to build a different class. I guess Oracles and Inquisitors are classes in Pathfinder 1st. I don't remember them, but there were a lot of books towards the end that I never read, so I don't know if those were classes or if these are new classes that they're making or whatever. That seems like a lot of money. From Onyx Path Publishing, we have Ghosts and Hunters, the 20th anniversary edition. This is a World of Darkness hardcover supplement. It's $16, where you play paranormal investigators to see whether ghosts or not. The 20th anniversary edition. So 20 years ago, there was a World of Darkness book called Ghost Hunters. I remember Hunters. I think it was called Hunters the Requiem or just Hunters. It was where you were just basically playing the humans that were fighting all the paranormal stuff. I don't remember Ghost Hunters. I remember Wraith, the Oblivion, and Hunters the Requiem. I think it was Hunters the Requiem. But I don't remember Ghost Hunters from a World of Darkness. So I'm iffy on, really, is this the 20th anniversary? Because I don't remember. Is it? I mean, if it's just Hunters, then I would say, yeah, this is the 20th anniversary of that book, because I do remember that book. But I don't remember Ghost Hunters. Anyways, it's $60 for a new supplement of adventure-y stuff for the World of Darkness. $60. We have some battle mats from Monster Fight Clubs. These are $50 each, 50 double-sided maps. One side of the map depicts a grassland. The other side depicts a broken road. $50 each for a battle mat. $50 each for a battle mat. What the fuck is this made out of that it's worth $50? It's a piece of paper. You know, it's magazine format paper. I've got 20 or 30 battle maps in my battle map box. I don't think I ever spent $50. Even that roll-up draw on your own one was like, what? I think $22 to get. I'm sorry, Monster Fight Club. I can't justify anybody spending $50 on a battle mat unless the grass is actually real or something. Yeah, no, sorry. From Gale Force 9. Yay, Gale Force 9 is back after all the trouble they had last year with Wizards of the Coast. We have some terrain, $25 each for unpainted terrain. One looks like it's a building of some kind, maybe a church. It's called Medium. And the other one is called Craters, and it just looks like chunked up ground. So this looks like it's... well, the church one could be for D&D, but the chunked up ground one would be probably for just any miniature skirmish game. Or I guess if you wanted to use it to, you know, craters and a weird hellscape terrain for your figures to walk around in. Yeah, it doesn't look like you have to build them. It just looks like they come as is, which is nice. I don't like to build the ones together, so they come as is. $25 for craters and $25 for an unpainted church-looking building. I can't say whether that's worth it or not because I don't know anything about figures. Does $25 for a bunch of pieces of plastic that look vaguely like craters or a part of a building seem reasonable to you? What would you pay for unpainted terrain? Let me know. Anyways, that seems to be about it for stuff coming on the shelves this week. Slow week, all things considering, but I think the gaming world is still reacting to last week's announcements of Spelljammer and Dragonlance, and all the other companies are coming up with ways to, how are we going to compete with that now that we know what Wizards of the Coast is doing, and what are we going to release? Con season's coming up, of course, with Comic-Con and all the other ones, so obviously they're holding off for their big stuff until Gamma, GameX, Gate World, Gary Con, Venger Con, Comic Book Con, Steve Con happen during the summer, and then we'll know what the big stuff is. We're only going into the beginning of Q2. It's hard to believe it's already April, and summer's just around the corner. So, yeah, exciting stuff. Nothing really stands out this week, but if any of these sound like something you want to go purchase, head on down to your friendly local game store. That's Dreamworld Collectibles here in Ventura, California, and see if they're carrying them and pick them up. And if they're not carrying them, ask them to special order it for you. I have been the OG GM, your guide to all the tabletop role-playing game news, weather, sports, and general internet nonsense, including a man on a horse holding a basketball in space. If you appreciate this content, let me know. Comment down below. If you don't appreciate this content, let me know, because I can't fix it if you don't tell me what's broken. And if you're feeling generous, consider supporting me by subscribing and helping me hit 1,000 subs. Till next time, get out of my outer space on your horse, you silly man. You can't breathe.